All right, so let's dive right in. Today we're tackling a story that I think is worthy of a political thriller. We're talking about President Trump's pardon of former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich.
Yeah, that's right.
We'll be looking at a CBS Chicago article that lays out all the details, and we'll try to understand what led to this pretty unexpected turn of events.
Yeah, it is fascinating to see how this pardon kind of reignites debates around presidential power
Oh.
and what is justice in American politics.
Totally. So we have Blagojevich impeached, imprisoned for corruption, and suddenly pardoned, and there are even whispers about a potential ambassadorship.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot to unpack, so where should we even begin?
Well, to understand how important this is, we need to start with the pardon itself.
Okay.
A presidential pardon is kind of like a reset button legally.
Okay.
It's the president using their constitutional power to forgive a federal crime and remove most, if not all, of the legal consequences of a conviction.
Okay, so in this case, President Trump made it pretty clear why he decided to pardon Blagojevich. He said that Blagojevich was set up, called the situation a terrible injustice, and even compared Blagojevich's experience with his own experience and his own battles with political opponents.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And it's worth noting that before the pardon was even official, Blagojevich had publicly expressed his thanks towards Trump. Blagojevich was sentenced to 14 years.
Yeah.
That's a lot of time, although he only served about 8 years before this.
14 years is a long time.
Yeah.
So for those who don't remember all the details, why was Blagojevich in prison in the first place?
Blagojevich was convicted on 18 different charges related to corruption.
Wow.
But the most notable one was the attempt to sell Barack Obama's vacant Senate seat
Oh, yeah?
after Obama was elected president.
Right.
This was a big scandal that really shook up Illinois politics.
Yeah, that's right. The Senate seat for sale scandal.
Yeah.
It really was a dramatic fall from grace for Blagojevich. And even after serving his time, he's maintained that he's innocent,
Yeah.
saying he was just practicing politics, admitting only to making some mistakes. Uh-huh.
And he even sued to try to overturn the ban that was preventing him from running for office again in Illinois.
Yeah, he did. And that lawsuit did not go his way.
What happened?
The judge dismissed it with a kind of funny reference to Dr. Seuss,
Oh, really?
telling Blagojevich it was time to go, go, go.
Oh, wow.
So clearly, not everyone agreed with Blagojevich's claims.
No. And this is where it gets really interesting because before all of this, Blagojevich was actually a contestant on Celebrity Apprentice
Yeah.
and was ironically fired by Donald Trump.
Fired by Donald Trump, that's right.
So there's this layer of irony where in 2012, as Blagojevich was getting ready to go to prison, he made a statement that said going to prison was worse than being fired by Trump on The Apprentice. It's kind of like foreshadowing.
It really is.
Yeah, it's like a reality TV show. And speaking of unexpected twists, there's now talk about Blagojevich potentially becoming an ambassador.
Yeah, to Serbia, of all
To
places.
Serbia, that's right.
Blagojevich has Serbian heritage, and he actually traveled to Serbia with Jesse Jackson. Oh, wow.
In 1999 to help get American prisoners of war released.
Wow, this is getting more and more interesting.
Yeah.
So what did Trump say when asked about this potential ambassadorship?
His response was interesting. He said, "No, but I would. He's now cleaner than anybody in this room."
That's quite a statement.
Yeah.
So we have a possible political comeback, and these interesting statements from the president.
Yeah.
What does this all mean?
This case goes beyond just Blagojevich.
Okay.
There's some interesting political parallels and connections to other figures who have been in the middle of investigations
Yeah.
surrounding Trump himself.
Hmm.
For example, Patrick Fitzgerald, the attorney who prosecuted Blagojevich,
Okay.
also represented James Comey,
Okay.
who was fired by Trump as FBI director.
Oh, wow. So the same person who went after Blagojevich was connected to Comey, who had his own issues with Trump.
That's right. It's a web of political players.
It really is. And it gets more complicated because Robert Mueller, who led the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election, an investigation that involved Trump, was actually FBI director during the Blagojevich investigation.
Yeah,
So this is much bigger than just one pardon.
it is. And on top of that, we haven't even talked about how much opposition there was to this pardon.
Yeah, I can imagine pardoning someone convicted of corruption is controversial.
Yeah.
What kind of pushback did it get?
There were some very strong reactions, particularly from people who had experienced Blagojevich's actions firsthand.
Okay.
For example, Senator Dick Durbin called the pardon an insult to America and Serbia.
Wow.
And then there's Illinois Controller Susana Mendoza, who actually has a personal connection to this story.
So this is where it gets personal.
Yeah.
What happened with Mendoza?
Blagojevich was actually convicted of trying to extort Children's Memorial Hospital, the one that became Lurie Children's Hospital.
Oh, wow.
He held up the funding for a bill that Mendoza was championing at the time.
Oh my gosh. So his corruption really ran deep. And Mendoza brought this up when she spoke out against the pardon.
Yeah, she said that a pardon doesn't erase what happened or the harm that was caused to the people of Illinois whose trust he violated.
This is heavy stuff. So we've covered the pardon, the crimes that put Blagojevich in prison, the unexpected celebrity apprentice connection, the possibility of him becoming an ambassador, and now all of these political figures and personal stories.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here?
Now we look at what this pardon means, the why behind this decision, and what it means for American politics going forward.
So it's really interesting to see how one single pardon just opens up so many threads of American politics. But I think the question is, what does this mean going forward? Does this kind of set a precedent for future political pardons?
Yeah, that's the question a lot of people are asking. I mean, this definitely raises concerns about presidential pardons being used for political reasons. And this isn't the first time Trump has pardoned someone in a controversial way. Remember Sheriff Arpaio?
Oh, yeah. The sheriff who was convicted of criminal contempt because he wouldn't follow a court order about racial profiling?
Yeah.
That pardon really caused an uproar.
It did. And now there's his pardon for Blagojevich, who's connected to so many people involved with investigations into Trump.
Yeah.
So it's hard not to see a possible conflict of interest there.
Right. It's like a political chess game.
Yeah.
Where every move has these huge consequences.
Yeah.
And the stakes are really high. This is about more than just one man's freedom, right?
You're right. It's a much bigger issue. This affects the integrity of our justice system, the balance of power, and the message it sends to everyone. It makes you wonder how much people will trust the judicial process after this.
And don't forget about the victims of Blagojevich's crimes.
That's right.
They're the ones who live with the real consequences of what he did.
Yeah.
A pardon might be legal forgiveness, but it can't fix the damage that was done.
That's a really important point. I keep thinking about Comptroller Mendoza's statement about Blagojevich trying to extort that children's hospital. That doesn't just go away because of a pardon.
Right. It reminds us that pardons are complicated.
Yeah.
It's not just about the law. It's about ethics and morals, too. This deep dive has really been eye-opening.
It has.
The more we find out, the more complicated it gets.
That's how these deep dives work.
Yeah.
It's not about easy answers.
Yeah.
It's about looking at all the sides of a story. And this case has a lot of layers.
So where do we go from here? What should we be watching for as this story keeps developing?
Well, I think it's important to pay attention to how this pardon might affect future decisions, both legal and political.
Okay.
Like, will this make other people think they can do the same kind of things?
Yeah.
Because they might get a pardon later?
Yeah.
And what about the public's trust in the justice system? How will this affect that?
Right. We have to be asking these questions as a society.
Exactly.
What about the ambassadorship? Do you think that could still happen?
It's hard to know for sure.
Yeah.
But when Trump said he would consider Blagojevich for the position, it means it's not impossible. But there's going to be a lot of opposition from inside the government and from the public.
Oh, yeah. I can imagine what the confirmation hearings would be like.
Oh, they would be crazy.
Yeah.
And we can't forget that this isn't just about American politics. Blagojevich becoming ambassador to Serbia adds a whole other level of complexity.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, what kind of message would that send to Serbia and to the rest of the world? What would it say about what America wants to do and who they think should represent them?
So much to think about. This isn't just about Blagojevich anymore.
Right.
It makes you think about the power of choices and actions. Like Blagojevich made decisions that led him to corruption and prison.
Yeah.
Then he got a pardon, and now he might even have a political comeback with who knows what consequences.
Yeah, you've hit on something important. It shows that even when things seem really bad, your choices and actions can change what happens.
And these choices affect more than just the person making them. They affect everyone around them and maybe even how our society works.
That's right. As we keep following this story, we need to think about it critically.
Yeah.
And remember that there are bigger things at play here.
That's a good point. And that's what the deep dive is all about, giving you the knowledge and understanding to make sense of the world.
Exactly. So when you think about this case, ask yourself, does this pardon mean we'll see more political pardons in the future? What does this tell us about power, justice, and politics in America today?
These are important questions to think about. We've given you the facts, the background, and different opinions. Now it's your turn to talk about it, learn more, and come to your own conclusions.
Because in the end, our democracy depends on people like you who are informed and engaged.
Right.
Keep learning, safe need. keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Blagojevich pardon, I'm wondering, what's the biggest takeaway for our listeners?
Well, if we look at this pardon in the bigger picture, I think it tells us a lot about power and justice and how politics work in America.
That sounds pretty profound. What do you mean?
Well, just think about it. This case shows how a president can use pardons as political tools,
Yeah,
and that could really damage people's trust in the justice system.
that's a great point. And it shows how these decisions go way beyond just the person being pardoned.
Right.
It can affect politics in general and even international relations.
Exactly. It's a reminder that we can't just sit back and watch. We have to be informed citizens who participate and hold our leaders accountable.
It's like that saying, the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. We can't just assume everything will be okay. We have to understand the issues and speak up.
I agree. And that's where knowledge and critical thinking come in. When we understand these complicated issues and look at them from different angles, we can make good decisions and help create a better society.
And that's what we try to do here on The Deep Dive. We give you, our listeners, the information you need to make sense of this crazy world.
So as you think about this case, think about these questions. Does this pardon set a precedent for more political pardons in the future? And what's this say about power, justice, and politics in America today?
Those are definitely some things to consider. We've laid out the facts, the background, and different points of view. Now it's up to you to keep talking about it, learn more, and decide what you think.
Because our democracy depends on people like you who are informed and involved.
So keep learning, keep asking those tough questions, and keep diving deep.
That's right. Thanks for listening.
And we'll see you next time for another Deep Dive.